Um, uh, Good evening, or afternoon, as you like. The sun is shining. Good first Planning Commission meeting after the change in time. I'll call this regular Planning Commission meeting of Tuesday, March 19, 2024 to order, and I will call the roll.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. Chair Klein,
Present.
Vice Chair Rudine. Here. Commissioner Wilkerson,
Present.
Commissioner Fortney,
Here.
Commissioner Vargas, Commissioner Lightfoot,
Here.
Commissioner Banta. Here. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Nancy. Everyone, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and I will ask Commissioner Lightfoot to please lead us in our salute to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Lightfoot. We will now move on with regular business, starting with communications. At this time, I will ask staff if there are any communications or announcements for this evening's meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There was one item of communication that has already been provided to the commission ahead of the meeting, and otherwise we have nothing new to report.
Thank you, Director Morris. We'll move on to approval of this evening's agenda. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
It's moved by Fortney, or moved by Wilkerson and seconded by Fortney to approve the agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? The item is approved. Next item is business from the floor. This portion of the agenda is available for the public to address the commission on any issue that is not on the agenda. I emphasize, if it's on the agenda, this is not an appropriate time for business from the floor. There will be a limit of 3 minutes per speaker. I welcome anyone who wishes to address the commission regarding a topic or issue that is not on the agenda to approach the podium. With that, we'll close public comment and move on to the consent calendar. We have one item on consent, which is the minutes from the February 20th, 2024 meeting. Does anyone from the commission or the public wish to pull the item from the consent calendar? Okay. Do I have a motion and a second? Moved by Commissioner Fortney, and it sounds like I have a second from Commissioner Banta. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And I will abstain because I unfortunately had to miss that meeting. But I did watch it on Clear Channel, and I'll say that Acting Chair did a wonderful job. Thank you very much, Commissioner Lightfoot. So we'll move on to public hearing this evening, which is to receive a presentation on digital freeway billboard study session. We will first hear a presentation by staff, followed by commissioner questions, and then we will open it up to public comment on the staff presentation. May we please have the staff presentation?
All right, good evening, Chair, Planning Commissioners, members of the public. Tonight's item is a study session regarding digital freeway billboards. So the request before you tonight is to receive this presentation regarding digital freeway billboards and then also proposed amendments to the sign ordinance and the City Gateways Design Master Plan. For some background, this all began last year in March of 2023 when the Community Development Department received an application from Clear Channel Outdoor with a request to convert an existing billboard to a digital freeway billboard. This billboard is located along eastbound I-80, headed towards Sacramento, just north of Kilkenny Road, so past Leisure-Town Road. Upon reviewing the application, staff determined that the proposed conversion is prohibited under the current sign ordinance because the current sign ordinance does not currently allow digital freeway billboards and that a zoning ordinance amendment would be required. On the right there, you can see a picture of the existing billboard. Because the proposal to allow digital freeway billboards, which were currently not allowed at the time, constitutes a major policy decision, staff brought the item to the City Council for a study session in August of last year. And at that study session, council indicated that they would like to move forward with allowing digital freeway billboards in Vacaville. And so in December of last year, council initiated a zoning text amendment with specific direction on how they would like to see digital freeway billboards regulated in Vacaville. This direction included things like restricting locations of where digital freeway billboards would be allowed in the city, how many static or standard billboards would need to be removed for every new digital freeway billboard, development and design standards, performance standards, and then also the review process for any future proposals. Taking a step back, we do need to look at what a billboard is defined as. The Land Use and Development Code defines a billboard as something that's used for general advertising or hire, and it can be an accessory used to a site. So for example, Clear Channel's application, the primary use of the site is agricultural uses, it's an orchard. The billboard itself is an accessory use to that orchard. A billboard is also a profit center on its own, so it generates revenue rather than being something accessory to the site. And then it also provides off-site advertising. So it's advertising things that are not on site. So for example, a commercial shopping center would be advertising things on site, like the businesses at that shopping center. A billboard advertises things that are not on the site. And so following City Council direction, staff has followed the outline that Council initiated in December for how we could regulate digital freeway billboards. One of these items that Council directed staff to look at are location restrictions. In December, City Council looked at a variety of different options of where digital freeway billboards could be allowed in Vacaville and decided to direct staff to only allow digital freeway billboards along Interstate 80 in the Northeast Growth Area, which is the area past Leisure-Town Road and Midway Road, and then along Interstate 505. At the December City Council meeting, the council did direct staff to only allow digital freeway billboards on the west side of Interstate 505, north of Vaca Valley Parkway. And this is to ensure that any digital freeway billboards don't conflict with the city's future plans for the Golden Triangle area east of Vaca Valley Parkway, kind of where Kaiser is and the Transwestern project that the Planning Commission approved a few years ago. And so the current proposed ordinance would only allow digital freeway billboards in the Northeast Growth Area and in that specific section of Interstate 505. Council also directed staff to develop regulations regarding requirements for removal of existing static or standard billboards. There's currently about 16 existing static or standard billboards in Vacaville. And so any future development agreements that digital billboards would be required to enter into would require that either 3 static billboard structures be removed or 4 static billboard sign faces be removed, whichever one is greater. And the option here is really because different billboard operators may have different assets in Vacaville, and so whichever one of the greater is applicable for that operator, they would be required to comply with that. Following feedback from stakeholders, staff is also proposing an in lieu option so that if a future applicant doesn't have enough billboards to remove, they can provide offsetting benefits such as monetary contributions or additional funding for parks and infrastructure. The proposed ordinance also does have development and design standards. For example, they must have placemaking features like welcome signage and Vacaville-specific theming, such as Golden Hills or biotechnology or agriculture. The billboard also must not exceed 65 feet in height, which is the current maximum height for freeway signs in the city. They must be at least 1,500 feet away from each other, and they must also have landscaping at the base of the billboard structure. And then, of course, any future digital freeway billboard application would also need to comply with Caltrans requirements related to spacing and zoning. The ordinance also does have proposed performance standards. For example, all messaging must be static, so they can't have animation or moving or flashing lights. They must be displayed for at least 8 seconds. And then they must also have automatic dimming devices to adjust to ambient lighting conditions. And then also applicants must be able, or operators must be able to shut down the digital billboard remotely in case it malfunctions. Then the last part of the ordinance really has to do with the review procedures and how any future proposal for a digital freeway billboard would be processed. Any future digital freeway billboard would need to enter into a development agreement. They would need to obtain a conditional use permit and also be subject to major design review. The development agreement would provide the provisions for the relocation or the removal of existing static and standard billboards to fulfill those requirements that we spoke about earlier. And then also, billboard operators will be required to provide one-time fees and then also revenue sharing mechanisms with the city. And per city council direction, all revenue generated from digital freeway billboards would be used for freeway beautification efforts. And then following the city's process, digital billboards also have to get approval from Caltrans as well. And so there is that extra step. And so the flowchart to the right just displays what that process would look like. Once we receive an application, we'll process it. It'll go to the city council for a discussion on the terms of the development agreement, what the main business points between the applicant and council's priorities are. Then ultimately, it will go to the planning commission for a recommendation, followed by a final decision with city council. And I also do want to note that these procedures would apply to any new digital freeway billboard that's proposed in Vacaville, whether it be a conversion or just a new construction or a new structure entirely. And then simultaneously, the city is also updating a plan called the City Gateways Design Master Plan, which contains policies related to billboard development in Vacaville. This plan is being updated for the first time in over 20 years, and it's being rebranded as the Vacaville Gateways Master Plan. And it has the policies related to the billboard development that are being revised to basically state that the city will continue the removal of static or standard billboards, and that we will be allowing digital billboards if they provide offsetting community benefits and enhance the freeway experience, consistent with what City Council directed staff to do in December. And so a draft copy of the revised Gateways Master Plan is included with your packet. And so staff is also seeking feedback as to whether the draft policies match regarding billboard development match City Council and community priorities. And if the commission has identified any other aspects of the Gateways Plan that may need to be updated as we continue along this process. Because this is a major policy decision, staff has been going above and beyond on public outreach. We hosted a community meeting virtually on Zoom in October, followed by a stakeholder meeting with billboard operators and property owners in November. The city also had an online poll to get feedback from the community, the results of which are published as part of the staff report packet. In February of this year, we released the draft amendments following City Council's direction for public review. And these draft amendments are for the sign ordinance and the Gateways Master Plan. We also launched an online poll to also get additional feedback from the community as well. We held a community meeting in March of this year and also a stakeholder meeting to introduce these amendments, similar to the presentation that you're receiving tonight. And we're hoping to get public comments from anybody who's interested in these amendments by the end of day on Friday, April 5th. We also did receive one communication from Mr. Goodman. That communication was provided to the commission prior to the hearing. In his letter, he states that he wants to ensure that the Nut Tree billboard that's currently existing at the Nut Tree Village is allowed to continue operation, that billboards in the inner city be allowed. So the inner city being the area between Alamo Drive and Leisure Town Road. And then also requesting that staff clarify spacing and height requirements. And so in regards to these three items, staff wants to clarify that the Nut Tree billboard is subject to its own development agreement, and so it would still be, any continued operation would be subject to whatever that agreement says. Billboards in the inner city, in regards to that, the City Council considered a variety of different options for location restrictions in December when they initiated the zoning text amendment. And their direction to staff was to focus on the Northeast growth area and a certain segment of Interstate 505. And so the proposed amendments reflect that City Council direction. And then staff is currently investigating different options regarding the spacing and height requirements and is continuing to receive feedback from the public and is open to feedback from the commission as well. And so in regards to next steps, we are still in that public outreach phase, in that public comment phase. So we're collecting public feedback, and we welcome any comments or questions. We're also finalizing the draft amendments. Once we collect all that public feedback, the public review period ends April 5th. And so we will be finalizing the draft amendments following that date. We're also working on preparing the environmental analysis for this project and the staff report for when this eventually comes back to Planning Commission for a recommendation and City Council for a final decision. And so that concludes staff's presentations. We're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Noah, and thank you to, appreciate you hanging in there. Nice tie. Yes. So with that, we'll go ahead and receive commissioner questions for the staff presentation. Commissioner Wilkerson?
I don't have anything yet.
Mr. Courtney?
I'm good right now, thank you.
Okay. Going down the line, nothing? Quick question, I might have missed it. What environmental analysis do we anticipate at this stage?
Yeah, so staff is currently working on an initial study and a mitigated negative declaration for the project.
Okay. Okay, very good, thank you. With that, we'll go ahead and receive public comment. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per speaker. If you would like to speak on the item, go ahead and line up behind the podium at this time. If we could start the clock now.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. Appreciate your time. Andy Goodman from Age Advertising, representing the Nut Tree Plaza and Liz Marks, and representing Kevin Moreno of Wren's Cafe. And we're here in response to the outreach programs. Obviously, we'd like to protect the rights of the Nut Tree Plaza and the digital sign on their property. We've asked for certain language to be added to the ordinance as it moves forward. Property owners with legally permitted digital billboards on their properties may continue to operate them. They may also upgrade these billboards to a maximum size of 14 by 48, which is 672 square feet, which is the same size as the Clear Channel sign that you saw earlier during the presentation, as permitted, and negotiate with the city of Vacaville extensions for their current development agreements. I've also made comment in my letter, which I believe you have a copy of, talking about the 505 freeway and where the digital signs are currently being proposed. We'd like to see that the 505 freeway be allowed at Vacaville Valley Road to be south of the freeway also, because those are zoned commercial and also business development properties. We want to make comment on the 80 freeway. We understand that these digital signs are going to be used as gateway signs. They're there to promote business within the city, and we believe property that this adds credibility and allows for the merchants within the city to be able to advertise. Mr. Moreno's property is on the far west end of the city and is a wonderful location for a gateway sign leading into the city, advertising the various merchants and services and retail opportunities within the city, not just putting all the billboards out on the east end of the city. We would like to make comment on the sign code. I think that Noah did a really good job of talking about 65 feet overall in the height of the sign. We would like to see it be whichever is greater between the grade of the property and the grade of the freeway, so make a distinction there. Caltrans allows for digital signs to be 1,000 feet apart on the same side of the freeway, so we'd like to make sure that when you're measuring the distance between static signs and digital signs, that it's in linear frontage on the same side of the freeway rather than a circumference being both sides of the freeway being measured. Lastly, the benefits to the city, identifying appropriate areas for digital gateway billboards, forging a partnership with the billboard companies will yield a mutual benefit.
Thank you. You're at time.
Thank you very much for your time. We've got a copy of my letter.
Okay, thank you. If any other member of the public would like to address the commission at this time, please line up behind the podium. Going once, going twice. All right, we'll close public comment and bring it back to the commission for discussion on the item. Commissioner Wilkerson.
Yes, thank you so much for the presentation. Can you go back to the slide that shows the entire city and where, to the gentleman's point of the map of the city in terms of 505 Northeast growth? So right now, we're only discussing the purple and the orange, correct? Because that's all.
That's correct. I do want to note that the purple segment highlighting Interstate 505, it would only be the portion north of Vaca Valley Parkway.
Okay, so to the gentleman's point, the south of Vaca Valley is not up for discussion. And I guess I'm having a little bit of trouble with this issue because there's so many businesses, Alamo, Mason, Merchant, Peabody, that could take advantage of signs all the way throughout the city, that they could take advantage of that as well. And so, I mean, I don't know if we're have any recommendation on that, but I mean, as you travel to other cities, you're able to see, oh, there's something coming up in a couple of exits, right? Just like we use them now. So I don't, understanding of why we would be limiting that, I guess is puzzling to me. I don't know if anyone else has that thought, because I look at it as a business owner, right? Like my business is off of Alamo and Peabody. I'm never going to have a chance to advertise for someone to potentially come to my location as they're driving. And so I would like to maybe see how we can discuss that. I don't know how the other commissioners feel. And also I look at it as a private property right. You know, if I own property and it's zoned for this, limiting me to be able to do something, I have a very difficult time swallowing that. So those are my comments for now.
Commissioner Wilkerson, Commissioner Portney?
I am interested in having a conversation on the west end of the Vacaville Gateway in regards to what a digital billboard sign would look like, especially because it would allow us to have a mechanism for beautification on the on-ramp and off-ramp, which historically, and maybe we get Mr. Moreno to make a comment on that, how many years that's just been an awful eyesore. And if there is a vehicle to not only advertise what's happening in town at that gateway, but a beautification, it's work to me to have a discussion, or at least make a recommendation to council to open and have this discussion.
So you're talking about like a wider point about beautification and the digital sign.
Well, the digital sign comes with that.
Yeah.
That would be, determined in the development agreement,
Yeah.
what those fees would be and how they're used in conjunction with the free airspace or time.
Yeah, so very good point. So can I just ask staff, are we looking at the potential for a broader beautification effort together with the billboard item?
The scope's limited simply because City Council already established where they wanted to see the ordinance being drafted. It might be helpful for the conversation to shed some light on how we arrived at this idea that billboards should be removed. It occurred back in 1998 and 2000 when the city was going about this initiative to develop a city beautification effort along the city's gateways. And at that time, the effort was, the city council would entertain the relocation of billboards, but the overall reduction needs to occur to help address the blight associated with additional signage.
Thank you, Albert. Director Morris, did you want to add?
I could have waited a little bit longer because he was covering a little bit of what I was going to cover, but I wanted to actually talk about the City Council's recent beautification decisions. So it was literally at the last council meeting, our Director of Public Works, Brian McLean, brought the proposal for the city to take over the maintenance of numerous off-ramps and on-ramps in Vacaville. And as part of the presentation, Director McLean shared what something staff's been working on is this idea that new digital billboards could provide a funding source to basically pay to install landscaping at these intersections. Director McLean has actual landscape designs that meet Caltrans standards that are ready to go and or maintain those landscape features. But I would say that where Senior Planner Enoch was going is that there's a history of Vacaville wanting to clean up the view of the freeway by removing billboards. And I believe when the council gave staff initial direction and subsequent direction they were thinking kind of cognizant of the history, and that's part of how, I mean, again, it was their direction, not ours, but how they ended up directing us to limit the locations, to not go back in time to kind of how things used to be. And I would also just point out that if we raise funds on 505 or the Northeast Growth Area, that wouldn't preclude the council from deciding to spend those funds at any of the city-controlled on-ramps and off-ramps that we'll be maintaining.
Got it. I didn't mean to cut you off, Senior Planner. Did you, I just saw Director Morris was requesting to speak.
She finished up for me.
Okay, so you guys are finishing each other's sentences. That's wonderful. Excuse me. Commissioner Lightfoot.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I understand the intent behind keeping this digital signs outside of the inner side of the city and where we're currently looking at it. I do, however, think that entry sign on the southwest side of I-80 would be at least something that the city might be interested in looking at as an entrance beautification type project, as the boundary, the final boundary of, or the entry point of Vacaville. So, but I understand their intent of keeping the signs out of where they proposing to go now too. The other thing that I think that I would like to get a better understanding of is the frequency at which the digital billboards are changing ads. I think it's in the packet. It said a minimum of 4 seconds is what's recommended.
Yeah, so the current proposed ordinance would allow for a minimum of 8 seconds. State law allows for a minimum of 4 seconds, but we're exceeding that by another 4 seconds to 8 seconds.
I'm just curious. So if you're traveling 65 miles an hour on I-80 and there's a digital sign with I'm sure somebody's done the math on the time that sign's in view. So how many ads is a passerby getting if at the 8 seconds that we're proposing? Just curious, and because, and my intention is, or my bringing it up, the frequency of the ads, I think, is the biggest distraction. I understand we are eliminating any sort of scrolling signs, right? There's no animations, but I'm just curious, 65 miles an hour with the size that we're proposing, how many times is that going to change at an 8-second interval?
That's an excellent question, one which we don't have the information for, but we'll have prepared for the next meeting.
And I bring it up just to bring it, let's have that talk. Let's really get an understanding of what that is going to be like. And I think it's an important point. That's all, thank you.
So Commissioner Lightfoot, you're thinking about a condition of approval for a potential sign, electric display?
So tonight, go ahead, Albert.
It might be helpful to understand if, Commissioner, if your concern is that 8 seconds may not be enough time to hold the image, or if it's too long of a time.
Sure. So I'm concerned that 8 seconds might be too quick, so that we'd be seeing more ads or I'd like to know how many times we're going to be distracted while we're driving, as we're driving past a digital sign on our freeway.
We can find out what that would look like at 4 seconds and 8 seconds. Our initial thought when drafting this was, well, if Caltrans has 4 seconds and you can currently see those along other areas of the freeway, why not be a little bit more conservative for that very reason of not wanting to have drivers get more distracted. But the information about how many ads you might see going at those speeds, we can do that research and have that information ready for the next public hearing.
Perfect, thank you.
And just if I may add to that, so we've received excellent staff reports that tell us what other municipalities and jurisdictions are doing.
Yeah.
It would be terrific to know what a comparison would be based on some of our peer cities, how they've approached this. If you have any data on what just to Commissioner Lightfoot's point, like, is there an interval that's standard based on our peers?
That was one of the pieces of information that we had worked on preparing for City Council on. It was primarily related to how do other jurisdictions handle the negotiation of allowing digital freeway signs. I don't recall that it quite covered the specific display amount that you might see in other jurisdictions, but certainly it covered what type of revenue streams are collected in different jurisdictions as they are negotiating those development agreements. And that's some of the information that you'll find in those previous City Council staff reports. So certainly, if the commission's interested in the previous meetings, there was a lot of information covered in that. But we can take a look at the iteration of how many signs you might actually read on those signs at the standard interval that you'll see at Caltrans standards, and then the one that we're proposing in here. And that might be better context for the commission at the next meeting to decide if 8 seconds is enough, or perhaps as part of a recommendation, maybe adjusting that as necessary.
Well, may I just say that all of us on the commission either attend the meetings of the city council or we watch them on YouTube. I know, on rare occasion I'm there, but I definitely, watch those meetings. So we have the context. We're just trying to, for the purposes of this hearing, be able to add that specific point, how we'd want to approach it moving forward. I'm going to keep moving down the line, and then I'm going to go back. Okay. Thanks, Commissioner Lightfoot. Commissioner Banta?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. For my feedback, it would be very similar to what he was suggesting in the entirety of the 505 freeway. I know City Council had suggested to stay away from that triangle, but for what it's worth, my recommendation would be to include all of it, and also to look at what it would be like to have it on the south side over by Alamo Drive and further down on the entrance to the city as well. So that way it's really the true gateway to both ends of the city.
I got a few questions because Commissioner Questions didn't make its way down this way last time. So first question I have is to piggyback off what other commissioners have mentioned about expanding the area. I understand that's not part of the purview of this. However, are we able to make a recommendation back to council to reconsider? Because something to reconsider is one of the slides mentioned that in lieu of a digital is to remove some of the static billboards. So wouldn't that actually accomplish the goal of council of removing some of the static if you take down 4 for every 1 digital? So that would solve that problem, excuse me, as well as other benefits that can come from having the digital billboard, which I don't need to go into right now. But that's the first question is, are we able to make a recommendation to council for that to address that issue? Excuse me, everything's blooming, the pollen's trying to kill me. Next question I have is, do we have an idea what the in lieu fee would be? Has that been discussed yet, or is that still too early stages?
Thank you, Commissioner Radin. We actually discussed and shared with the council a lot of information from other jurisdictions about what other jurisdictions have received in exchange for allowing the digital billboards. I mean, it ranges from cities like Roseville receiving hundreds of thousands of dollars every year for theirs annually. And for a long time, and some of them it's $50,000 a year. But yeah, that will be something that when and if the council adopts the ordinance that allows digital billboards in whatever its final form is, that will be then the subject of the development agreements and that negotiation process.
Okay, so a little early for that one. But I was at the city council meeting last Tuesday where Director McLean was also talking about taking over Caltrans' responsibility for cleaning up, and mentioned, and also Director Morris had mentioned, that is a new budget line item. Now, the initial startup costs are quite heavy, but then there will be annual maintenance costs. are we able to put recommendations? Because at the moment, it seems that the in lieu fee could go here, could go there. Are we able to make recommendations to kind of solidify that any in lieu fee would go directly to help offset?
I'll take this one, Albert. Thank you. That actually, the direction staff gave the council is that this program and allowing these billboards, the goal would be to use this money to make Vacaville's freeway more beautiful at the on-ramps and off-ramps. So if you support that council direction, you could certainly express that.
Okay.
I think I'll go to your first question because it's a similar question. At this evening study session, we really welcome commissioner comments about what's proposed. And if you have perspective to offer, that's absolutely part of why we're having a study session. I did want to differentiate that there's a difference between a billboard, a digital billboard that basically, as my staff described earlier, advertises brands, products, and services that are not on site. They're just general versus an on-site advertising device. And we have different regulations already in place that allow for freeway-oriented on-site advertising devices. But the points about the gateway, the other comments commissioners are making, we want to collect your comments this evening because this is how we ensure that the final public policy that the council adopts is well informed.
Okay. Another question I have is, so the 2 digital billboards that we currently have here in Vacaville, have there been any complaints that the city has received or that maybe perhaps Caltrans received and passed on to us? Have there been any complaints about them being distracting?
I'm going to take this one too. Sorry, guys. I think that no one, and I would say, I'm not speaking for the Nut Tree, but we've talked about this. No one was happy watching the Nut Tree digital billboard sort of disintegrate. And I think actually the owners were probably the least happy. Liz is nodding out there, so I'm not speaking out of school. So there was some tension as that billboard was disintegrating and as the Nut Tree was working with Caltrans to get approval to actually fix it. But otherwise, the city, I'm not aware of any
But as them being
complaints.
distractions, are they a road distraction?
Nothing about distraction.
Okay, so I wanted to clarify that. My last question is, out of the 4 meetings, how was turnout for community participation?
So when it comes to the first community meeting, we had 1 participant. The second community meeting, we had, I believe, 2 participants, excluding the Clear Channel applicants. And then for the stakeholder meetings, those were pretty well attended. We had quite a few billboard operators in attendance for both of those. Because of the lack of participation at both of the community meetings, not the stakeholder meetings, we did launch that online poll and we did get about 200 responses to that online poll, responses of which are included in the packet.
Thank you. And those are my questions for now.
Great, thank you very much, Vice Chair Rudine. Great questions. Commissioner Fortney, did you want to?
Yeah, I do have a couple more questions.
Sure.
Looking at the map that we have presented there, the northeast growth area, and we're looking at the Caltrans distance between signs, basically it will be our city ordinance or however that falls in place. What's the potential, how many signs can be possible in that stretch? Do you have any idea?
We would have to do that calculation.
Okay, I'd love to see what that would be. Looking at this and how many, we're basically not allowing anything south of that, and now having Las Vegas on that small stretch in the northeast growth area. So that would be one comment, and I would really like to see that our recommendation or our comments are to explore and look and have that discussion for what the Southwest would look like. And if you could do the homework on how many potential signs could go there, that would kind of give us some perspective.
Yeah.
It's a great comment.
Yeah, did you want to?
No, I'm good.
Commissioner Wilkerson?
Also, just looking at where we're limiting ourselves, right? So I get it, this is purple and orange, but the heart of Vacaville, you know, is not on this map to me, and I would really like to see that, especially when it comes to the beautification Director Morris talked about from Mr. McLean in terms of the on and off ramps. Some of the oldest on and off ramps are southwest. And those are some of, no disrespect to the property owners, but some of those are our biggest challenges and eyesores. And if there's a way for them to have a beautification and to raise income to help that, I don't see why we would limit that. That to me, it's not a smart business practice. You know, as a business owner, you want to be able to think forward on stuff like that. Plus, I would like to see a complete standard entering and exiting Vacaville. Let's not just limit 505 in the Northeast Growth Area. Northeast Growth Area, you know, nothing's there, 505, but we have the heart of our city that people are going to travel through, that businesses need an opportunity to advertise on. And we need something consistent throughout the entire city. And so limiting that, I would really like to have that in our comments. And to just everyone's point, I really appreciate it. To Commissioner Lightfoot's point on the changing of the 8 seconds or longer or shorter, that's also an opportunity for a business owner to make more income, to allow us to make more money on the beautification. So I would love some information from, you know, Caltrans on that, and just in your packet in your next presentation. So that's what I got for now.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilkerson. Does anyone else want a second bite? Okay. I'll just say the commission has given, I think, pretty good direction. Do you feel like you have what you need moving forward?
Yes, I think we do. And to recap, our understanding is what might be helpful for the discussion at the public hearing. More information about the display rotation that occurs on the signs in comparison to what Caltrans allows, what we're proposing, mapping information that shows what could be done over in the Northeast Growth Area if we were to look at the radius that's being proposed here. I think that we'll probably also throw in what Caltrans radius is at 1,000. And then we'll also look at the plotting of those signs along the remainder of the freeway throughout Vacaville, just to give an indication of what that looks like. And that's our understanding of what the commission is looking for the next meeting.
Very good, Senior Planner. And you can keep your mic on, because I'm just curious, do you think that you've got everything you need from the public comment? Your mic's on.
Sorry, yeah.
Now it's off. Yes. Now it's on. Okay.
From the public comment, we've already started making attempts at making some clarifying language in the draft ordinance to clarify that those existing signs that are there now that are already under those development agreements, they can continue to operate in accordance with the development agreements. This ordinance isn't intending to affect those, and that the provisions within this ordinance will provide them an avenue to perhaps renegotiate through another development agreement, which might include increasing the size of the sign, increasing the height. Those things would be reserved for future negotiations between City Council through business points discussion. And many of the other comments that we've received from Mr. Goodman has already been forwarded over to us also.
Excellent. My only question that I would add is based on Vice Chair Rudin's question about public outreach. It seems like if we're having Zoom meetings with 1 or 2 members of the public, that's not perhaps our best type of public outreach effort. Or, maybe the effort was excellent, but the result, that's not what anyone hoped for, was 2 people in public outreach. So I'm curious whether the community where you might have a Las Vegas Strip type, result, are they aware of the impact of this decision? And so Noah, I'll go to you, and then Director Morris.
So yeah, we too have been a little disappointed with the community outreach, or the lack of turnout at our community meetings. That's why we have been turning to the polls and the online polls, which have been much more successful. We've been getting a lot of written comments through those polls. They allow for short answers so people can type up comments and responses. So we do evaluate that, and we do include that with the packet, so that way, when it comes to you, the commission, and to the City Council, they do have those comments as well to refer to. And we also do tally up the results, create a nice little chart and table, just analyzing what that outreach has looked like.
Great idea. Thank you very much. Director Morris?
I also want to add that in my career experience, it is very hard to get people's attention on big public policy issues. unless somebody makes a decision that results in something, and then people are always like, how did this happen? So we did, in the case of this, after the low turnouts at our community meetings, initial ones, we went out to one of our local realtor groups, we made a presentation. Everyone started off talking about how they like private property rights, and then the conversation started to be more robust about, but I wouldn't want one visible from my house. And then it actually was a great discussion. And I think as we, as a team, we'll hopefully get this one done and in June as planned. But as we do more of this work, I think we're going to do more of that old fashioned going out to established groups, taking it out that way, because the in-person connection with our community I thought was really helpful. But to Noah's point, I've actually been surprised that people take the survey, and I've been surprised that they have, I mean, just because it's been nice to get the engagement, that they actually write their thoughts and comments. And then also, of course, the planning team has been very skilled at like merging that data so we can actually take advantage of it. But we're trying different things here to get people's attention.
Very good. I mean, the only real thing that broke my attention was Commissioner Fortney's comment about a Vegas Strip, right? You were going to get letters if we have a Vegas Strip and it's visible from someone's house. So I just think we need to be a little more mindful of, will you see this from your house? Or will your house be illuminated at night? I mean, that's going to not be a very good thing to be surprised by. So let's just be cognizant of that. I think Commissioner Fortney hit the nail on the head with that observation. So that's my, I'll just second that observation. And with that, unless there are any other commissioner comments, we're going to go ahead and end this public hearing. Thank you very much. So we'll now move on to item B. But before we do that, I'd like to take a 2-minute break, if that's okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
that part. With that, we are reconvening to item B, public review of the fields at Alamo Creek Subdivision Draft Supplemental Environmental Impact Report, the draft SEIR. We'll hear a staff presentation followed by commissioner questions, public comment, and then we'll bring it back for discussion at that time. Noah, you're still with us.
Hello again. Noah Ramella, Assistant Planner. We're going to be talking about a study session for the Fields at Alamo Creek Draft Supplemental Environmental Impact Report.
Thank you.
So the request tonight is to receive a study session presentation on the Draft Supplemental Environmental Impact Report for the Fields at Alamo Creek, which is a proposed project located on Hawkins Road, just to the northeast of the approved Farm at Alamo Creek specific plan. You can see the project site located in green in the project map on the right. It's located just outside city limits along Hawkins Road, just to the north of Elmira Road. It's approximately 2,700 feet to the east of Leisuretowne Road. And you can see there, the project lies within the sphere of influence and our city's urban growth boundary. So just for some background on this project, the city received a general plan amendment initiation request, which was initiated by the city council in June of 2021. Following that initiation, the city then received a formal application submittal in April of 2022. And the project consists of a request to annex this property and subdivide it into 241 residential lots, 153 of which would be detached single family, and then 88 of which would be attached single family, also known as duets. There would also be a half-acre private turnkey park and then a 7.2-acre open space, agricultural buffer. And then also, as part of the project would be integrated within the previously approved Farm at Alamo Creek specific plan to the southwest of the project site. And so as required by state law, in compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act, the city must prepare an environmental analysis and disclose any project-related impacts. In this case, we are preparing a supplement to the environmental impact report prepared for the Farm at Alamo Creek. And this is in compliance with section 15163 of the CEQA guidelines. The Farm at Alamo Creek Environmental Impact Report was certified with the approval of the Farm at Alamo Creek project in November 2018. And CEQA allows lead agencies such as the city to rely on existing analysis for things like the water and the sewer and the traffic. But we also do need to disclose the additional impacts created by this new project. And so in April of last year, the city held a scoping meeting regarding the different topics that should be addressed in the supplemental environmental impact report. And then also a notice of preparation was released in July of last year as well to let different agencies and also the public know that the city is embarking on the preparation of this report. And so the city has concluded drafting the supplemental environmental impact report, which was released for public review on February 14th. And as required by state law, the public is able to review the draft report for a period of 45 days, with the public review period closing on April 1st of this year. The draft environmental impact report does identify certain less than significant impacts under CEQA. These include less than significant impacts to biological resources, cultural resources, land use and planning, and then also transportation and circulation. But in this case, there's also significant and unavoidable impacts related to transportation and circulation, specifically for vehicle miles traveled, and then also for cumulative transportation impacts. And so tonight, you all are going to be holding a study session on this draft supplemental environmental impact report. And so we're recommending that the commission open a public hearing to collect verbal comments on the report. And then also the cities can continue collecting written public feedback on the report until April 1st at the close of the public review session. And then once we get all those comments, we'll be preparing the final report with responses to all the comments. We'll also be resolving any of the outstanding project issues that still exist with this project. And then we will be scheduling the project for future public hearings with the Planning Commission for recommendation and then City Council for final action. And so that concludes staff's presentation. We'd be happy to answer any questions. And then we also have Angelica Chu from DUDEC, who prepared the environmental analysis, if there's any questions regarding the analysis. And then also Chris Robles, the applicant, if there's any questions about the project details itself. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Terrific presentation. Maybe we'll go through commissioner questions, but we definitely want to invite our DUDEC consultant up to supplement some of the questions. If she wants to come now, that might be helpful. But any questions? No? Good?
Comfortable.
Comfortable? Yeah. Angelica, you're welcome to. Yeah, I mean, you did all the work here on the EIR, so you may have a seat if you want. You don't have to. Yeah.
So the only avoidable impact was the transportation.
Sorry, can we get the mic? Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. So the only significant unavoidable impact was the transportation impact, and that was related to vehicle miles traveled, and that is just based on the recent guidance that the city adopted regarding VMT. And so they developed screening maps, and just based on the location of where the project is, it's located in a VMT inefficient location. So just its location in that area of the city is, or outside of the city, but to be annexed, is in an inefficient location, which would cause a significant and unavoidable impact.
So what we mean by inefficient, will you elaborate on what the factors might be for that?
Right. I think, Albert, do you have more details on exactly how those screening maps were developed?
Yes. We're getting into the weeds right now, but.
It's a hearing, so that's when you get in the weeds.
Yeah, exactly. And so the idea behind VMT is that we're intending to try and reduce how many vehicles have to travel. And when you're on the periphery of the city, you can't avoid that. You're creating subdivisions that are going to have to travel to get to different areas, their jobs, grocery stores, schools. And so that's the disclosure to the public with this particular project, that you may be able to find ways to reduce impacts for many of the other categories that are important under CEQA guidelines. But this is just one of them that doesn't matter how you design the project, it's going to result in a significant impact. And under CEQA, when you have a significant impact and there's no way to avoid it, that's okay. The decision makers can decide that there are overriding considerations that they can adopt as part of the project.
So if I may, well, first, Commissioner Lightfoot, you have a question?
I think this particular location is interesting because it's the first in that expanded growth area outside the city limits. And I'm just curious if, so right now we have inefficiency at vehicle miles traveled, correct? After more services are developed in the area, will the property actually improve? So as we build more commercial in the area or more parks in the area, will it need to be reassessed? Because I anticipate it actually, if this was a later date, that it actually might be a lower impact. Is that my?
Well, by reassess, you mean will change?
I'm not saying we'll need to reassess it, but if we think 10 years down the road, I mean, it's a significant impact now. Will it be as significant in 10 years? This is my thought process. Do you understand?
Yes. Unfortunately, CEQA, when you look at the analysis, you can consider the cumulative impacts associated with the project on the broader area, and then maybe even the eventual projections for the horizon year of development within the city. But within this particular area, east of Leisure Town, no growth is identified. It's all identified for urban reserve. And so the project analysis focuses on what do the existing land uses with the general plan look like, how will development, in addition with this project, create an impact. So the answer to your second question is there a subsequent determination later on down the road if the rest of the east of Leisure? No, the answer is no.
Well, I guess what I understand Commissioner Lightfoot's question, at least what it arises in me, is if there was, so this impact is based on today, right? So today, the VMT is inefficient based on the existing services, and that's because of the state of development in the project area, correct? But 20 years down the line, it might be more developed. You could have more commercial, more retail, more amenities, more jobs in the project area. And so I guess for the, we're going out of the weeds to the 20,000-foot view of what does that area look like for Vacaville in 20 years? What's staff's best projection of what will this look like?
Or the approval or the review of this, getting additional environmental impact reports on the books or submitted, with this one being submitted, does it consequently approve the VMT of the next one that gets submitted?
To that question, no, it doesn't approve other projects VMT. The best way to get a picture of what the future development would look like in 20 years, it's a general plan.
Yep.
That identifies what those land uses were going to be. But again, in this particular case, you'll have projects that can amend that general plan. Green Tree was an example of that, where there was just a golf course. It was going to be private recreation. And so for that project, they changed the general plan and evaluated how that project would impact those existing resources at the site, but also how their addition would affect vehicle miles traveled and things like that. In this particular case, they're taking their project, seeing how it is impacted. In addition to the farm at Alamo Creek, the farm had assumed and disclosed certain impacts, mainly related to a lot of the different resources. In this case, this project can assume that it's not going to create any more impact to sewer, water, storm drain things because they're relying on the farm at Alamo Creek for that infrastructure. But there are some new impacts, like to agricultural. They're going to be converting land that is used as prime agricultural land to housing. And so that results in an impact that you disclose, but there's ways to mitigate that you conserve agricultural land elsewhere. The main thing to take away from this is that the project analysis is what today's analysis might be, and the cumulative impacts that the broader impacts that this project would have on the environment. CEQA doesn't take into account the speculation of, well, what happens if a general plan is amended for unknown areas? It just mainly focuses on the tangible, what's here now, what do we know now?
Right. Our team from DUDEC didn't look at the, what might be years from now based on things that we don't know, a project that we don't know. So like your task today is to focus on this project based on the general plan, the land use designations and consistency therein, and any environmental impacts therefrom.
That's right. We do look at cumulative impacts, but that is in context of, what is planned in the general plan as it is adopted now, and how this project would interact with those projects that we currently know, and if they would combine to create a cumulative effect. But we don't go further than that of, what if the general plan changes or additional,
Yeah,
that's
you'll
just
be
too
working
far.
forever if you're on that loop.
As like the trailblazer, the first in, does that, like, have you seen that scenario in the past where, it's the first in a new area, there's nothing really around it? Like, have you ran into this before where VMT is actually the issue and?
No, because VMT is such a new issue, how, we used to analyze based on the level of service. And really the vehicle miles traveled is a new topic in CEQA that we're looking at. So we haven't come across that yet.
Right, so you're looking at, there's doorway counts, there's a lot of Amazon deliveries out there, a lot of DoorDash, Uber Eats, to an area where you did not used to have traffic induced to that area based on the demand of individuals living out in that region.
Right. It's primarily residential, the travel from the new residential units and the growth inducement there. So like trips to work and et cetera.
Okay, okay, good to know. Commissioner Wilkerson, were you guys good? Okay. So unless there are other questions, we'll go ahead and open public comment on this item. 3 minutes per person, please.
Good evening, Chair Klein, Planning Commissioners. Appreciate your time this evening. I'm Chris Robles on behalf of GNW Properties, GNW Holdings. They are the property owner and project proponent. The project, to add a little more color, I can appreciate the Commission's position in not having the detailed maps and things at this time to review it. So we're 8 to 14 units to the acre, which is what the city has requested. It's medium density in your housing element and in the land use inventory as a desired land use density. So we're providing that. As far as the VMT, we're on the edge of the city. So we're the same thing as Brighton Landing, Roberts Ranch. People are gonna have to travel to services. There may be some services on Leisuretown Road in the future. That may have a marginal difference, but as Angela noted, they're traveling to jobs. They'll travel to services. It's just the way the city's been planned, being the edge, we've got to travel. CEQA does require the mitigation be incorporated if it's feasible, and even if it is significant and unavoidable. And we've done that. VMT provides for traffic calming, alternative transportation modes as incentives to mitigation to try to do that. So we have off-street and on-street bike trails. We also have incorporated traffic circles into the project for traffic calming. So to the extent we can in the project, we've added those and they are elements of the project. So for the traffic area zone for the farm and the fields, anticipated 1,200 units, residential units in that area. With the farm and the fields combined, we're just a little over 1,000. So we're less than what the traffic area zone anticipated for that area. So I think we're about as good as we can get as it relates to traffic. And I just want to note that we've reviewed the mitigation measures. We're in agreement with those mitigation measures. And in fact, we've actually requested an additional mitigation measure be added, and staff included that in the list of mitigation measures. So we thank you for your time this evening, and I'm here tonight to take any questions that you may have for the property ownership. So,
if it's okay with the commission, I'll allow questions.
Report set
here.
it out.
Okay, we're good.
Lastly, I'd just like to thank Noah and Angela for their work on this. Appreciate it to get it.
Wonderful. I just have a quick question of you. What was the additional mitigation you requested?
The Yokedishi Winton Nation requested monitoring and cultural sensitivity training. Typically, their cultural resources are around the waterways. So we have Alamo Creek. Alamo Creek has been realigned, and the previous alignment actually went north of where it is currently. And so it doesn't cross our property, but it is near in the vicinity. And so they had some sensitivity to that, and they requested that we incorporate monitors during excavation, and that we also have our initial on-site pre-construction meetings include cultural sensitivity training. So I want to honor their request, and we've requested that be embedded in a mitigation measure, and that's incorporated. So,
very good. Thank you very much
thanks for your time this evening.
that.
Very much appreciate it.
Excellent. Thank you. Other public comments? All right. We'll go ahead and close public comment and bring this back to the commission for further discussion. Starting with Commissioner Wilkerson. Anything?
Comfortable.
Courtney? Good. Okay. Excellent. Vice Chair Rudin.
I just want to say, I remember when VMT started a few years back, it replaced level of service, and I understand why it's there, but it's almost, I don't want to say a moot point, but the way that Vacaville's been designed and where new growth is, it's something that's going to come up. It's not anything where the state's going to come after us punitively or anything, because it's just kind of how it's designed. So I know it's listed as a significant, I just lost my train of thought. Thank you. Unavoidable. But it's kind of the nature of the beast of how it's designed. I looked through the other impacts, and they're fine. So I fully support this, and that was my comments.
Thank you, Vice Chair Rudin. I think the issue wasn't that the state's going to come after us. CEQA is not enforced by the state. The issue, the scary thing for the developer is litigation. And we just want to we want to make sure that we're not being sued based on our flawed analysis of any kind. But I would concur that Dudek has done a top-rate job on this. We have excellent consultants working on this, a great team, and a committed developer with the cultural sensitivity is wonderful additional mitigation. Thank you very much. So with that, we'll go ahead and close this item and move to item number 8, Director's Report. Director Morse, will you please proceed?
Thank you, Chair Klein. My staff is going to pull up the PowerPoint show here, hopefully. Manager Payman Bevend is taking the seat now and is hopefully firing up the presentation. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to make my report this evening brief, so let's go to the next slide, please. Since the Planning Commission last met, the City Council approved the Millennium Center General Plan Amendment and rezoning consistent with the Commission's recommendation. And then on March 12th, the Council received the General Plan Annual Progress Report, the same presentation, more or less, a little shorter than the Commission, and they accepted the report and directed staff to file our annual report to the State of California. And then also, this seems like it was a long time ago, but it was just last week, the council also had a discussion item about whether or not to have a moratorium on battery storage systems. And the moratorium itself was not the agenda item, it was a discussion about the potential, and the council directed staff to bring a moratorium for battery storage energy systems back to council in May. And so it's something that staff is currently working on. We now have some future items, and they're a little bit meaty, especially the first one, so I'm going to warn you about the paper that might be headed your way. The 2024 Land Use and Development Code update is coming. We're starting to do community outreach on this. These are a bunch of housing element-driven changes to our code, but we've also put a few other fun things in there just to help make it more interesting than just housing stuff. So that's my preview. I'm not going to get any more detail because you're going to have to read it soon. And then we always bring the annual list of capital improvement program projects to the commission. Your role is reviewing recommendations from staff about the CEQA general plan consistency. And so we will be bringing that to you for your recommendation to council. Okay, the building division monthly report. Things are a little bit slow this year. We're told when interest rates change, we're going to get a lot more activity, and we have a lot of stuff that's in the pipeline, but it can be issued as soon as someone can afford to launch. We did have 38 more overall building permits issued this month compared to the month before. We're down a little bit on single family issued and finaled. We're down another chunk of solar permits, and we are significantly down in revenue in the building division. And it's really, when we start issuing some building permits for Lower Lagoon Valley, we've got a chunk that are ready to go. We've got some stuff in South Vacaville. We've got a couple apartment projects. At some point, hopefully that will recover sooner than later. So that's the building division monthly report. And this is our trend line showing building permit activity on a monthly basis with 4,000 building permits issued to date so far. And then let's go to the next slide. This shows us our inspection activity. It's been a little bit slower, but it's still a pretty small team. And I would just tell you, they're still very busy out there, keeping up on all of our inspections. And we are at normal inspection timing. If you call for an inspection, you can generally get the next day or the day after that at the worst. And then solar permitting continues to trend like just almost literally right along with building permitting. So it's all a little bit low right now. Let's go to the next slide. And this is where I turn it over to my planning manager.
Good evening. So in terms of current planning monthly active report for the districts you have in front of you, for District 1, we had the all-weather architectural aluminum expansion, which is a pretty big deal for the city. This is one of our big manufacturing facilities, and they're choosing to stay in Vacaville and expand their facility in Vacaville, which is roughly 90,000 square feet of expansion with some fancy machinery. So we're looking forward to that. That's been submitted, and the process has started to review that. And also, sorry, some of these names sometimes make me laugh. Beyond Market and Happy's Car Wash has also been submitted. This is for the parcel that's across Lowe's on East Monte Vista Avenue. Over the years, there have been a lot of proposals to have some sort of convenience store, service station development there. And so that's been submitted for review as well. In terms of what we approved, Nut Tree Business Park time extension and the East Monte Vista EV charging station were projects that we approved. Building permits are primarily miscellaneous residential and non-residential improvements. For District 2, we received the Jepson Center drive-through and Kairos Public Charter School modification. The Jepson Center was previously known as the Papin Commercial Center. It was approved, I think, 3 or 4 years ago. So as you have seen, they've constructed most of the site, and the proposal is to have a drive-through facility at the northern corner of the retail building. So that's under review right now, and that would be coming to you for action. In terms of what we approved building antennas for a project on Union Way, and again, building permits are miscellaneous commercial and residential improvements. For District 3, we approved the Monte Vista Food and Liquor expansion. This is at the corner of Dobbins and East Monte Vista, and it was just interior remodels that occurred that expanded their capacity for inventory. So, and building permits, the regular residential and commercial improvements, which is for primarily all districts. District 4, that was really the only activity. We didn't have any new applications or approved applications. For District 5, Family of Faith Daycare and Preschool was approved, and again, similar types of building permit activity. And then District 6, we didn't have any new applications or approved ones, but and a lot of activities for building permits. In terms of the advanced planning monthly reports, so we're just continuing on with every opportunity we have to implement our housing element programs. The Land Use Development Code that update that Director Morris mentioned will have several housing element programs as well. So we've reached out to, as part of our housing element requirements, we have reached out to the development community to discuss ways to work with staff, work with the city to bring sort of variety of housing types to Vacaville. We had our first meeting on January 31st. We had our second meeting on March 11th, which was really part of the Solano Collaborative Developers Forum. Pretty good turnout, and a lot of good items were discussed. Each city had a board of some sites they'd like developers to look at, so we had our boards, selling the sites if we could, and there was some interest, so we'll see if that goes anywhere. We'll have 2 other meetings scheduled for the summer and in the fall. And again, it's just reaching out to the development community, which is right now we have a list of, I think, about 250 folks that we communicate with. We've hit on this a little bit. The Land Use Development Code update is coming your way, which again includes some housing element stuff. We had an outreach meeting we were intending to have 2 meetings on March 6th. We had one, but the other one was, didn't happen because of a fire alarm training. So we're gonna reschedule that for some time. We're gonna reschedule it sometime by the end of this month for April. Allison Priority PDA, we issued an RFP in January. We had some folks respond. We had our interviews, and we're intending to select a consultant to look at the inclusionary housing element, 2 things. So Allison, we have received response to our RFPs. We're looking to do interviews by in March or April. So we did receive similar RFP responses for inclusionary housing, and that one I think we're intending to select somebody in the next couple of weeks to study inclusionary housing. So those are just the active reports for planning. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Go to the next slide.
Questions from the commission?
Tell me when the time is, Director Morris, or
That good?
I know you want to go on vacation, but.
Director Morris, is this a good time for?
Go ahead and ask him a question. I want to add a couple updates about the growth areas, what we've been doing too.
Okay, could you recap or tell me when the time is that you could give us a recap on the state of the city, the tour afterwards, what sites were you there and what you had involved as your participants?
So Commissioner, I'm the low man on the totem pole, so the Director will probably give you some of that information. I did not attend, but thanks for asking. Yeah.
Well, we're a team here. So the State of the City was held last week. The city manager and the mayor addressed the Movers and Shakers breakfast that the chamber hosts every year. It's actually something that can be watched on YouTube, but I'll summarize the things that I heard is that the city recognizes right now that interest rates are definitely affecting development, particularly the development of our industrial areas. But we have really no shortage of confidence that as interest rates come down, we will see the development activity that's on the horizon. That was one of the points. And then also, I mean, honestly, if you were not there, I would really recommend you watch the video. It's a fairly concise tour via slides and talking from two gentlemen about all the things that are happening in Vacaville. The bus tour was, I don't think it was the first time the city's on a bus tour, but I know it was the first time for a long time. So Director Don Burris and I were assigned each a new electric bus that had never been on the road before, it turned out. The drivers were very good, but the buses were new. And we toured folks who signed up for the tour all around Vacaville. We showed them downtown with 700 Park. We showed them the Allison PDA with the recently completed affordable housing project that looks beautiful. We showed them a lot of stuff as we were driving through, but I would just say, as usual, Director Burris's tour of our industrial areas and his explanation of the cool businesses and companies we have here in Vacaville and what the future holds. I think I was doing his talking points on our bus, and I think that was probably the best part of the tour. And I was just reading Don's talking points because they're really good. So it was a success, Commissioner Fortney. I felt like that tour was kind of a long time coming for me and for the folks that were on it. Most of them have lived in Vacaville forever, and they've really never seen most of the stuff that it was cool. Yeah, and then I did want to just add that since the other advanced planning update, although technically we're still trying to hire an advanced planning team, so Christy, Paulette, and I are the advanced planning team with help from Albert, Noah, and Paymon. It's all the same people. We hosted 3 successful meetings with the community about the growth areas projects. We had one that was focused on the Lock Padden community and the Maplewood community, and then we invited 3,000 people to come to either an in-person meeting or a Zoom meeting. Really good attendance. We got a lot of perspective, answered a lot of questions, and we're essentially gearing up to bring the initiation of the growth areas planning to council on April 9th as planned. So that's one to keep your eye on. And a couple more announcements. As I think most of us know, tonight is one of our commissioners' last evening with the commission. We'll be swearing in a new commissioner at the next meeting and swearing on continuing commissioners. Thank you, Commissioner Wilkerson. It's been a pleasure. And then at the May 21st meeting, the commission will conduct the annual election of the chair and the vice chair. So just something to plan ahead for. And then staffing updates, she was here. I have an assistant director now. Her name is Kristen Pollitt. It's week 7 or week 8. It's going really well, and I look forward to you all meeting her. And sometime soon she'll be presenting here, so you'll get to hear from her directly. And we have a new permit technician who's on board, a U.S. Navy vet who started, and he's doing great. And then as of yesterday, we have a full-time plan check engineer. We didn't just accept the job, she showed up. And that's a challenge right now in public service, I kid you not. We always kind of hold our breath on that first day. I know that that's a thing. So anyway, we still are waiting for our senior planner to start in long-range planning. Then we'll be able to hire an assistant associate planner to support that individual. But things are on a positive trend right now with the hiring of staff to do the work in my department. So thank you for.
Thank you for that update, Director Morris. Commissioner Wilkerson, do you have a question?
Two quick things. On the land use and development code update, as that continues to change, you and your staff always have a standing invitation to my association to come whenever you need to engage feedback or have a meeting, or kind of like we did with the digital billboards. So I really want to extend that invitation out. And also, I may have missed it, but was a builder chosen for Lower Lagoon Valley?
Yes, they have actually contracts with multiple big builders. So Lennar has submitted house plans for it's not the first neighborhood that has planning entitlements, but it's the first neighborhood that's in for building permits. So that's actually actively under review while PG&E works to turn on the power out there. And then that would allow the city to fill the reservoirs and actually turn on the water. So that's all happening kind of concurrently at this time. But Lennar's there, Taylor Morrison is there, And I can't remember if the third deal is yet sealed, but yeah, Albert's shaking his head. So they have two. Lennar has multiple neighborhoods, by the way.
Okay, okay,
yeah.
just wanted to ask those questions, and thank you for that.
Thank you, Dr. Morris, for that excellent report. And I just want to pause here and say how we have a terrific team. And you guys, or you all, excuse me, I know now to say you guys anymore. It's verboten. But this is an excellent team. And we're not in a position, for instance, to not have housing element certified. They worked very hard on that. And that's in place. And I just got back from the League of Cities conference, and you meet a lot of different freaky staff and commission people that have all kinds of weird situations. And it's just, we're so blessed here to not have a strange circumstance where we've ever had a builder's remedy hanging over our head. So I just want to say that you guys you all are doing excellent work, and thank you very much, though you're short-staffed. So commend you for that. Now is the time for us to receive commissioner comments on anything that commissioners might be wanting to speak about in the community, reports from other boards, or other activities. Commissioner Wilkerson?
Yes, since the last meeting, attended the Police Activity League crab feed with some of the other commissioners. Great turnout. Great to see the community come and engage and to support the kids of Powell. So I greatly appreciated that. And yes, this is my last meeting. I want to thank Ron Roulette, Mayor Roulette, for the appointment, city staff for all the, sometimes my phone calls or text messages or emails. I greatly appreciate all of you. City constituents, thank you always for showing up and giving public comment. You know, sometimes we not always agree, but our job is to listen and take that information in. I want to thank my wife for her support of me coming to the Planning Commission. It was added a little adjustment to our family life in terms of time and in her work, so I greatly wanted to acknowledge her. I also want to acknowledge my parents, Shereen and Jerry Wilkerson, who did a fantastic job of doing bedtime routine with my kids and giving me updates that they're okay. That's something that we sometimes forget. That personal feel of missing doing that bedtime and bath and rubber ducky and all the things. And so just aged myself, I think. But just really appreciated them. Again, Shereen and Jerry Wilkerson for all they've done for me. And, you know, lastly, I've been serving in Vacaville in some capacity since I was 14 years old. And I love this city. And I just look forward to continuing to serve and depending on what that looks like. So I'm excited.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilkerson. You'll always be a commissioner, right? We value your service, and I know others will speak to this as well, but we're so pleased to have had you as a colleague, and maybe we can do a picture together to commemorate this for you, and whatever it takes. Thank you very much.
Nancy said I get to take this home, so I'm gonna.
No way. These are. It's not like an illegal gift of public funds.
I'm gonna take it.
He doesn't have to fill out the 700.
Yeah. Hey, that's one great benefit that you have is that you don't have to disclose all your personal information.
Definitely noted. No, I'm gonna take it home and.
You might want to get them other toys,
Yeah.
John. I mean, just if they're playing with a placard, I'm afraid for them.
It'll be fine.
Commissioner Wilkerson or Commissioner Fortney?
Yes, I want to close with, it's been an honor to serve with you. Land use is extremely important, not only for us, this generation, but for future generations. You took the task on and delivered, and fully expect you to stay engaged and make comments from the other side.
Yes.
Thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you.
Fortney? Commissioner Lightfoot?
No, I echo the sentiments. Thank you, John. It was a pleasure.
Commissioner Banta?
Yes, I'd like to say thank you to Commissioner Wilkerson for being a colleague on this commission. And I look forward to your future endeavors. I do also want to report back, I did mention at the last meeting that I was able to attend the Housing California Conference and the Conference on the National Alliance to End Homelessness. And it was really exciting to learn how other communities statewide and nationally are coming together to create housing stability and expand housing options via different community approaches, federal, state policies, ballot initiatives, general plans, housing elements, and cross-sector partnerships. And so I'm excited to see how all of our advanced planning can take some of that into consideration and how Vacaville can continue to create housing for all. I also got to attend the PAL crab feed as well, and I just wanted to acknowledge how great of an event that was. And I look forward to hopefully having more opportunities for the PAL kids to be acknowledged here at the city council meetings. I know we've acknowledged other entities such as baseball teams and such, and I think that it's a wonderful opportunity that we acknowledge those children as well. So that's all.
Commissioner Banta, Vice Chair Rudin.
I would also like to say thank you, Commissioner Wilkerson. It has been an honor the last 2 years being on this commission with you. We started on the Housing Subcommittee, and that was entertaining. So I knew it was going to be fun. It's been a fun 2 years, so thank you. And also, I attended the PAL Crab Feed. Almost won, too. But that was a lot of fun. And yeah, I also would like to do what I can to bring more attention to the PAL kids. And I have a request for Director Morris. When you're looking for ideas for study sessions, can we please have some for new housing laws? Last October, it was reported out that Governor Newsom signed 56 in 1 year alone. So that's some moving and shaking. So if we could get, just ones that will definitely impact us. So if I can make that request. And that's all.
Vice Chair Rudin's on the money. If we could maybe have a meeting of the Housing Subcommittee to field the, issues and how they affect our local community, that'd be terrific.
I'd love to make that motion, actually.
Is there a motion? Are we allowed to do motions, Nancy, number 2?
I'll pretend to be Nancy number 3 just for a moment. At council, this comes up a lot. One council person wants to add something to the work program, and it is helpful if there is a unified majority direction to do that. I can tell you this is something we should do. I agree with you. I've been waiting to hire a senior planner for advanced planning and an assistant associate planner for advanced planning, but I was at the same conference as Chair Klein. There's a lot of housing laws. So if you do want to make a motion to formalize the commission's interest, it still won't mean you'll have it next month, but of course it will just make it very clear that this is something you all are into.
Well, if Commissioner Wilkerson wants to make the motion, I believe that, yeah, that's a proper thing for you, John.
First.
Will you make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion, and sometime in the future, the Planning Commission receive an update on the new housing laws and how it will pertain to Vacaville, and any legislation that could be coming down the pathway as we continue to look forward to what could be happening. Because a lot of times we get a report and it'll be October and we're just now catching up to what's
Sorry,
coming
John,
back around.
Point of privilege. I mean, this is a long motion.
Yep, we're going out. I'm going out swinging.
Well, I'm just wondering, and you're
And I'll
welcome.
be here in the audience to listen. I'll take my 3 minutes, and if you allow me more time, Chair Klein, I will take it.
Are you still making a motion? Or
Yes, no, so,
I'm just trying to, what is the motion?
just when I do come speak that I'm allowed it more time, 1, 2. 2, just update on the housing laws sometime in the future for the commission. I think it would be pertinent, just in the direction the state, is placing municipalities.
I don't know about welcome that. Earlier, she was talking about a second.
I'll second, I'm just not going to repeat it.
Okay, so it's been seconded by Vice Chair Rudin, and this is just in harmony. Do we, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so we'll commend that to Director Morris as the pleasure of the commission to move forward with housing through the subcommittee. So I think it's proper for us to adjourn in honor of Commissioner Wilkerson. We thank you for your service. We're adjourned to the April meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.